Fandom Pulse, Dungeons & Dragons 2025 Monster Manual, gender swaps dryads and hags and turns the incubus and succubus into transgender creatures. Yeah, that's what we're doing today. So let's take a look and see what this article has to say about Dungeons & Dragons. The 2025 Monster Manual is the final book for the trilogy of core books, New Dungeons & Dragons editions. And Wizards of the Coast has already revealed gender swapping of traditional monsters like dryads and hags, as well as transgender succubus and incubus monsters in a new promotional video. With the new edition of the fantasy role-playing game, Wizards of the Coast has already courted controversy with their changes to the game by adding a diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda on top of their core rulebooks. Dungeons & Dragons players, as a result, have been watching their beloved role-playing game of questing and fighting monsters turned into a political, cultural, and social conditioning tool by the Hasbro Corporation. Exactly. Just like what we need, too. We have, none of that going on anywhere else in the world, so Dungeons & Dragons has to toss their hat into the ring. Before the Monster Manual began being promoted in 2024, Dungeon Master's Guide infamously has incorporated BDSM fetish community practices in the game for safe spaces, having players make an X with their arms if they feel triggered by a situation and requiring a DM to stop the game and address the player in question. The 2024 Player's Handbook is filled with imagery of BIPOC and female characters as at a margin of more than 5-to-1 for white male characters, about the direct opposite of the demographics who play the game. Now, I've already addressed this in a previous video. It's not true. The number of white males presented in the Player's Handbook is 35, and the number of BIPOC and female characters presented in the Player's Handbook is 55. It's not a margin of 5-to-1. Dungeons & Dragons came under further scrutiny after it was revealed senior designer Jason Tondro penned a foreword to a history book on Dungeons & Dragons calling Gary Gygax misogynistic and accusing him of cultural appropriation. This prompted Elon Musk to beg the question as to how much Hasbro cost for him to buy the parent company of Wizards of the Coast and save Dungeons & Dragons from all of these woke controversies. Now, the final core book in the trilogy of New Dungeons & Dragons supplements is being released and is showing signs of being infected by the same agenda as the last two books in the promotional interview on the Dungeons & Dragons YouTube channel. Now, this video here I think is long.
We have the new
55 minutes. So I might go through this and cut out the good parts to share with you. If not, you can watch the video yourself. I'll leave a link to the article down in the comments. Wizards of the Coast developer Jeremy Crawford and F. Wesley Schneider gave an interview with Todd Kendrick detailing the final core rulebook of the new edition of Dungeons & Dragons and the 2025 Monster Manual. In the introduction to the video, Kendrick says, "Tell me what's new in the new Monster Manual," to which Crawford admits everything, which is not what longtime Dungeons & Dragons players want to hear. But it gets far worse as the video goes on. Once it gets to the 47-minute mark, the designers start to reveal changes to the monsters in the game. You can see some monsters are very similar to what you saw in 2014, and in others, it's been reimagined in a variety of ways, Kendrick said. In many cases, when we redesign a monster, wanted to bring out the monster's story and personality better, they continued. Then the gender agenda crops up, as they say. Also, people are going to see the art, male or female versions of a creature that they've never seen before. For instance, in the dryad painting, you now see a male dryad and a female dryad. The developer spoke on changing dryads, which is a Greek mythology, always took the form of a young woman. Hags now can be aunties and uncles, grannies and grandpies, Kendrick followed up, of which the creature has always been traditionally a wizened old woman or fairy with the appearance of an old woman. Then he gets into the transgender agenda with changes to succubus, a traditionally female creature, and incubus, a traditionally male creature, which now are two sides of the same creature which can swap gender at will. Yeah, okay. Well, it is a demon, but it is kind of stupid to do this and be like, hey, look, the succubus and the incubus are the same thing. They're just one demon that can change into whatever it wants to. It's a demon, so it can probably do that anyway. But the whole gay incubus, that's been done. It was done in Crowd Manduna and the Flaming Sword of Fire. But here they are. Here's the trans succubus incubus. They're the same. There's only one, and they can just flip-flop whenever they want to. Okay. Kendrick said, we've also reimagined the succubus and the incubus rather than having succubus and incubus indicating the gender of one monster. We've now turned them into two monsters. Either of those monsters can appear as male or female. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you turn them into two monsters if they can just change into the other monster? That's stupid. He then got into the transgender agenda with the new changes. The succubus is the sort of one you meet in the material plane, and the incubus is the one who haunts your dreams, and the succubus can turn into an incubus, and the incubus can turn into a succubus. Then what's the point of having two? I don't understand why you would do this. That doesn't make sense. The succubus and the incubus are one of just many examples, he concludes, implying there are more changes to monsters that will add gender ideology into the mix for the 2025 Monster Manual. With this video, D&D fans are already dreading the release. Ex-user and player Kevin Lamb sarcastically said, "Great news, everyone. The 2025 Monster Manual has male dryads, and succubi are now genderless." Yep. To which influencer Melanie Mack quote tweeted Dungeons & Dragons aides, "With so much controversy already surrounding this edition, one wonders what Wizards of the Coast could possibly be thinking in making these changes, as it's only bound to turn off more players from their new products, but they continue down a path that dishonors the game Gary Gygax and his friends created." Well, I don't have a problem with that, dishonoring the rules of the game anyway, because the rules they're all over the place in the game that Gary Gygax created. We have an issue here in addition to adding genders where there should be none. And that is Dungeons & Dragons supplement uses goblin men's rights activists as example of how DMs should present evil in storytelling. Yeah, men's rights activists are of course evil. I mean, we know that, right? Every men's rights activist I've ever met, he was eating babies or something like that, right? That's how that works. I'm being sarcastic, of course, so I don't want to be quoted out of context here. Let's take a look at this article and see what it has to say about this. This is the important part in the article. Harmony Ginger, if you told me this passage existed, I wouldn't believe you. One of the most standard adventure hooks in fantasy games goes something like this. Goblins are attacking the village. The characters need to help. It's a straightforward setup. It's fun, but as written, it embraces the explicit idea that goblins are attacking the village simply because that's what goblins do. So when that hook comes to mind, it appears in a published adventure, but put yourself in the frame of mind that attacking villages isn't what goblins do across the board. Then figure out what kind of goblins might engage in that sort of behavior. Well, I always thought of goblins as being like scavengers. They're not able to really eke out a living on their own. They have to take what other people have done and have it for themselves. So that's how I always thought of goblins. It's not because they're evil necessarily, although they are evil, but it's that they are just not intelligent enough to figure out how to get what they need to survive. So they see something that they want and they think, well, I can get that and I'll be able to survive, which a lot of us would probably devolve into that sort of thinking if we didn't have such a comfortable life that we have here in the West. For example, goblin cultists are attacking the village, or goblin bandits are attacking the village. Goblin refugees are attacking the village. Very timely, that one. Goblin men's rights activists are attacking the village. Any of these alternative scenarios sets up the same basic adventure. But in these other scenarios, goblins aren't the noun. They aren't the agents of conflict simply because they exist to create conflict. Rather, they're the adjective giving more context to who the agents of conflict are, letting you explore the story of why they've embraced conflict as a choice. And now in the article, it goes on to say, it's not only absurd as a premise in this book because goblins are evil, infernal beings that are by nature creating conflict, but using men's rights activists as an example is laughable because it's such a political modern trope, it ruins the fantasy storytelling. As the woke continues to destroy the Dungeons & Dragons brand, one wonders how many people will keep playing these game iterations. Right, so I couldn't really say it better myself, but you know, they bring up the refugees here. Isn't that saying that refugees are bad? I mean, that's too much of a finger wag at the current refugee situation we have going on in the Western world. Goblin refugees are attacking the village. Refugees are peaceful, they're kind. They just want to come here for a better life and to work hard and to contribute and to assimilate and do all the good things. They're showing their hand there that they don't really appreciate the refugees. Goblins are evil, and this was pointed out in one of the the Dark Elf books. I believe it was Passage to Dawn. Maybe it was Spine of the World. I don't remember now. But Drizzt, he stumbles into a cave. At the same time, some goblins discover the cave. And he's like, oh, we can share. And then Caddy Bree, the love of his life, comes in the cave behind him. And the goblins get all excited about all the fun they can have with the young, attractive human woman. So Drizzt promptly slaughters all of them because goblins are inherently evil. And goblins raiding a village, would goblins do that? Maybe if there was a lot of them. Maybe if it was a halfling village, because as we can see here, the goblin, this is out of the Complete Book of Humanoids, the first book, as far as I'm aware, that ever suggested that goblins or orcs, gnolls, or any of those things could be goodly. We have the goblins' background here. Goblins are small humanoids growing to a height of about 4 feet tall. They're pretty small, right? Humans are going to easily be able to defeat the goblins with better tech and greater strength. If you're attacking a village, they're probably going to have defenses. They're probably going to be better organized than goblins. So goblins attacking a village is pretty lame as a storytelling device. And I would never use that unless it was, like I said, halflings, or it was some really remote village that was small and the goblins had vastly superior numbers, etc., something like that. But these people who write this stuff, they don't think creatively. They don't think about the actual physical nature of how things happen. They don't think that, oh, like, it's fine, you go be a boss babe and get your bag. They don't think about how that's going to impact your ability to have children. Are you going to have time and energy to have children? No? Or you're going to wait until you're 35? Well, then that's a geriatric pregnancy. You can't really be doing that. You can, of course, but it's not considered a good idea. They don't think about these things like I think about here, going, oh, the goblin? And D&D doesn't think about these things here. Look at the goblin. His maximum strength is 15. 4 feet tall, and his maximum strength is 15 out of 18 if you don't play the game. Okay, he's 4 feet tall. His maximum strength should maybe be at 12, 13, something like that. Not going to be that high just because he can't generate that much force. Now, maybe he has strength similar to that of a chimp, but I've seen video chimps struggling to lift things that weigh more than them because of the nature of the pulley system. But using a pulley system requires weight more than strength. Yeah, but their maximum strength should not be. Maximum dexterity should definitely be an 18 at least, because they're small and nimble. And in fact, they even have some sort of nimbleness thing over here, don't they? What are they? Special advantages, improvision, disadvantages, superstitions. Well, I thought they had some sort of. I think it's in the newer versions of the game. They have like goblin nimbleness, where they can like escape situations because they're just so dexterous. Their intelligence and wisdom can be maxed out at 18. Why? They're bestial. Look at it. It's this thing. Part of the reason these things were considered evil by ancient peoples is because they were stupider than the average person. Being an animal-human hybrid was seen as somehow evil or somehow bad, somehow less than human. Like, we look at it today and go, wow, I have like the human intellect, but I also have the strength and speed of this wild animal. That's awesome. Okay, that's not how they saw it in the past, in medieval times. They saw it as a degradation of the human, a reduction of the human. I'm not saying that we have to see it that way today, but that's where these myths come from. The goblins are evil spirits. They're not good spirits. Okay, stop with this. Just do a cursory bit of research and you'll find this stuff out. Read the Encyclopedia of Things That Never Were, and you'll find out all sorts of stuff about all these different spirits. Like dwarves and gnomes are the same thing in the ancient myths. It's just a difference of language. But these people, they want to live in their own little worlds where things don't make sense. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You can find me on Rumble and on Twitter. And you have a good day. I'll talk to you in the next video.